we pause for a minute, not for a punchline, and not for a cartoon square with a tie-wearing everyman in a coffee mug. We pause for a man who quietly became something far more important than most people ever realized. Scott Adams, for most of his life, was just a cartoonist. As if just a cartoonist is a small thing. He was a cartoonist that connected with us because there was so much wisdom in that little man, that everyman. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. The problem with priorities is that everybody has one. You know, people who don't know what they're doing are often the ones that are the most confident. Hard work is rewarding, but really only when somebody notices. Some people are born with leadership qualities. Others are just born with confidence. We saw, especially in the days when there was a water cooler in our office, when we would stand around in the kitchen or we would work in big offices where we all knew somebody that looked like that cartoon figure. We related to him. We understood him. We saw him in ourselves at times. But not often did I think at the time of the cartoonist that was behind it. He wasn't just a cartoonist. Scott Adams was a translator. He was a translator of human weakness, of power, of persuasion. He was a translator of self-deception. He took the chaos of our modern-day life and reduced it in a small little square, in the old days in a newspaper or in a calendar. He took all of that and reduced it into something that we could see. And then he did something amazing. When he could have stayed safely inside that little box, Scott stepped out. I think the first time I had Scott on the show was during COVID. He lived in California. He was a guy we all loved. After you heard his political views, I'm sure half of the country did not love him. But he became a guiding light for so many people who are just willing to think honestly. You didn't have to agree with him. He just asked you to think. He became a mentor, in a way, to so many people just trying to understand how influence really works. He was a guy who was changing his life. And he would mentor us through our lives by watching how he was dealing with things. He really was a philosopher who was disguised as a stick figure artist. He was just quietly asking questions most people were too afraid or too tired to ask. Let me play a couple of interview pieces from Scott here recently. Let's play first his Christianity, his transformation, his conversion to Christianity. Listen.
Whenever I talk about the simulation, and especially when I talk about my own impending death, many of my Christian friends and Christian followers say to me, "Scott, you still have time. you should convert to Christianity. And I usually just let that sit because that's not an argument I want to have. I've not been a believer. And, but I also have respect for any Christian who goes out of their way to try to convert me. Because how would I believe you believe your own religion if you're not trying to convert me? So I have great respect for people who care enough that they want me to convert and then go out of their way to try to convince me. So you're going to hear for the first time today that it is my plan to convert. So I still have time, but my understanding is you're never too late. And on top of that, any skepticism I have about reality would certainly be instantly answered if I wake up in heaven. I do believe that the dominant Christian theory is that I would wake up in heaven if I have a good life. Yeah, I don't necessarily have to, just state something in advance. And so, to my Christian friends, yes, it's coming. So you don't need to talk me into it. I am now convinced that the risk reward is completely smart. If it turns out that there's nothing there, I've lost nothing. But I've respected your wishes, and I like doing that. If it turns out there is something there, and the Christian model is the closest to it, I win. So with your permission, I promise you that I will convert.
I have to tell you, there are going to be Christians that are going to argue about that all day long. I love that. Because even there, he's being honest. I've always wondered, I've joked with Penn Jillette about that. I mean, you're an atheist. You don't believe. Just hedge the bet in a joke. But while Scott said that lightly, I doubt he took that lightly. He was a deep thinker. Here he is just a few weeks ago talking about the end.
So this is going to be a tough week because I'm doing some goodbyes in person. And for the most part, it's people I know I'll never see again. And that's pretty tough. Pretty tough. All right. I think I've slurred my way across this enough. I think I've said what I need to say for now. Thank you for listening and watching. I'll try to keep things off my chin. All right. Bye for now. I hope to see you later, but it might not be.
That's how he ended things. And I can say with full confidence that, Scott, we will see you later. Scott was a friend to this program. Because Scott was a friend to truth. Not the fashionable kind. Not the crowd-pleasing, crowd-approved kind. But the kind of truth that actually costs you something. We reached out to him recently. I asked if he would just sit down with me for one last conversation, probably a couple of months ago. He said something that none of us will ever forget. I would love to. But there just isn't any more gas left in this tank. No drama, no self-pity, just honesty. Truth. He didn't save anything. He gave everything that he had. He didn't save it. He didn't ration it. He burned through all of it for all of us. And when the tank finally ran dry, as you just heard, he was still giving, still teaching, and only running on vapors. To me, the remarkable thing about Scott is even his vapors were more than most of us given a lifetime. Let his life challenge you to think clearer, to question everything, question the narratives, to be peaceful, to be kind, to be giving, to understand persuasion so you're not enslaved by it, to laugh. Not because things are trivial, but because humor sometimes is the only way to survive reality without surrendering to it. He knew something that I think most people never learn. Clarity is compassion. Truth can be delivered with wit and can reach places anger never will. And courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just keeps showing up day after day until there's nothing left to give. Today, celebrate. Mourn, but celebrate. A man whose life was spent emptying itself out over and over every day for others. Scott Adams finished his race. He didn't quit early. He didn't coast at the end. He crossed the line on fumes, and for that, and for the light he left behind, for the questions he taught all of us to ask, for the honesty he modeled when it mattered most. Scott, thank you. Thank you. You carried more than your share. And my friend, we will indeed see you again. Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Go there right now, sign up, no interruptions, just the truth, uncensored and unfiltered. Don't just watch, take a stand. And I'll see you over there in a minute.